Welcome to the Fantasy Draft Room. I am Chase. You can find me on Twitter at Trophy Chase, TFDR. And as always, Cody, where can they find us at?
Y'all can find me over on Twitter at Cody Smith, TFDR. Check us out on YouTube at the Fantasy Draft Room. This podcast, the Fantasy Draft Room, wherever you get them. Like, subscribe, view, rate. You can check out our joint Twitter at _TFDR. I think that's everything we got. And
I think you covered it.
Let's get into the show, man. This is a fun one.
Yeah, man, we're going to do a first round 2023 way too early rookie mock draft. So we're going to dive into the first round of rookies. We've been hyped up about this 2023 class for a long time. We've heard about this is a gold mine draft. So let's find out who some of these names are, who's going to be making an impact on your Dynasty roster, what are some of the strengths and weaknesses of these individuals as well. But we do have some big news that we want to kind of dive into. Being the Dynasty community, you can't miss the fact that Cooper Kupp is out for the year. What are we doing in Dynasty to improve our rosters? Because most of the time, if you had Cooper Kupp, you were a competing roster, right? So what are you doing right now? How are you handling and treating this Cooper Kupp situation?
Yeah, most of these teams, you have him on probably top 3 teams because he's been top 5 wide receiver yet this year, top 3, top 1 in some places, depending on your formats. And it sucks right now. He's not out for the year, but he's going to be out for the year, basically. Like, hasn't ruled him out for the year, but 6 weeks. He's going to be fantasy year. You're done. And to be honest, with the way the LA team is looking right now, they're probably not even making a playoff push, which is wild. They're probably just going to shut him down for the year at some point. So he's out for our purposes for the year at least. And it sucks, man. So if you're on a contending roster, it's going to be hard to replace what's probably your wide receiver 1 on your team. And really from there, you've got to make the pivot. If you've got to make the pivot, hopefully your trade deadline hasn't passed yet. This is why we kind of, pushed for later trade deadlines in some leagues. I think you and me were probably last week of the regular season fans of the trade deadline happening.
Yeah.
But some people it's already passed and you're just kind of left holding the bag here. But for those who haven't, what do you do with him to try to keep on making that push if you do need the replacement? You got to tear off of him if you need the points, to be honest. If you're in one of those top 3 teams and you really think you can make the push this year, you've got to get the points somehow. So if you need to trade him, you're trying to get the highest wide receiver return that you possibly can, in my opinion. You go and you shop him everywhere. Hopefully you did this, right as soon as it happened, because his value is probably already tanking a little bit lower than it was during that first day when we saw the injury report come out. So where I guess we got to talk about where's our wide receiver cutoff? Who are the guys you're trying to pivot down to, or are you just trying to turn it into a liquid asset in a pick and then see what you can do with that pick?
So you definitely have options. It's going to depend on your buying market. Like, your league is what you need to know right now. The problem is Cooper Kupp is a 29-year-old wide receiver, right? He's going to be 30 as you go into next year. He's still going to be good, right? We project he's still going to be a very good top 6, top 8 wide receiver for fantasy purposes next year. But he's older. And so a lot of these rebuilding teams that would be interested, or teams that are looking to compete next year, is what you have to look at. These rebuilders aren't going to want Cooper Kupp because he may not have 2 years or may not have 3 years. So it's going to be a lot harder to find a buyer in your league. But what you got to find someone that thinks that they're going to compete next year, who still values Cooper Kupp highly, and really target the best wide receiver they have, or one of them. The trade that we made, our trade deadline was Monday at the end of the week. So we had a trade go down where we actually got rid of Cooper Kupp and Bijan Robinson for Mike Evans and Tyler Lockett. So we took 2 win now pieces. Mike Evans is kind of where I would think, like, still a fringe wide receiver 1. If you could find someone like that you could get. Any other names kind of pop in your head that you might be interested in besides the deal that we did?
Yeah, I think that is probably the range that you're looking at. I mean, I've heard some people question, could I trade my Cooper Kupp for Devontae Adams? Yeah, if you can get that done, go get it done. So I think that's really what you got to do. You got to go to your leagues a little bit, recognize, like you said, which ones are still in the middle, probably contending, trying to make the push for 2023, but it might not be their year this year. I don't think you're going to the bottom 3 teams in your league in most cases and trading Cooper Kupp to them because, like you said, it's just not an asset that's probably going to help them win in the future, with him being older in 29, going on 30, and with the state of this offense as well, which we don't know going into next year. So you go to those middling teams and you start just going down the pecking order is where I start at. Just going, hey, this is your best receiver. Will you trade him straight up for Cooper Kupp? No, move on to the next one. Move on to the next one. You just go down your rankings until you find where that cutoff point is for your league. That's how I'd want to treat it. Luckily for us, we were just able to sneak that one in, and that we're joint running right under the window. You can hold him for a little bit longer. Make sure you're not getting absolutely just tanked in value. But I trade him for. Would you trade him for a Hollywood that's going to come back right now?
That was a name that I was thinking of too. Like, it's Hollywood. He's younger, but yet you saw some production from him coming off injury. That was one of the names that popped in my head too.
So it's those type of guys, and even Hollywood, you have some questions. He's still coming back off the injury. He still have DeAndre Hopkins, who's producing really well in this offense. Looks like an absolute target monster for Kyler right now, or Colt McCoy, whoever's at the quarterback position. So it's those type of guys that I think you're trying to target, and you take down to like a Chris Godwin level. I think you're still okay there.
That's
whenever you get down to like.
Smitty.
And it's tough for like Smitty, Garrett Wilson, something like that. Then you're like, I mean, it's young, but he's not going to be producing you and helping you win this year.
That's kind of the thing you have to also look at. Like, as you mentioned, go through your league and find out what options are there, and what other options you have, kind of weigh whether or not that's what you want to take for Cooper Kupp. He should theoretically produce next year, and unfortunately you'll have to eat the L this year or hope you have depth behind Kupp. If you're desperate at wide receiver, if he was like your alpha, he was your lead wide receiver, then yeah, you might want to try and find a replacement the best you can get and roll with it. Obviously make sure you're still getting good value, but try to go for the shit this year. Otherwise, I would wait till the offseason. He's going to be healthy again. There's no doubt about that. It's just going to be, what does that offense look like? How is he at 30? And can you get more in August or in September? That realistically is how long you may have to wait to get the value you want. But if you can find yourself an Evans, I think Hollywood. Would you do DeAndre Hopkins?
D-Hop I'm perfectly fine with.
Straight up? Would you do straight up, or would you get like a second back?
I mean, obviously you're asking for it first, but if push came to shove, yeah, I'd set him off for DeAndre straight up.
Straight up, yeah. It's crazy. It's crazy to think about, because you'd never do that deal if Cooper Kupp's healthy, right? Like, that's never a deal. You're like, oh yeah, give me D-Hop. Like,
in no world 1.5 weeks ago would you ever even think about that. So if you are one of those middling teams, would you just liquidate the asset? Are you okay with that, saying he's not going to come back for this year? Your middling team, do you just sell him off for 23 first?
A single 23 first. Oof.
Feels rough, man.
If it came right down to it, the thing is, like, again, it's a playoff team. It depends on where that pick lies. You know where these picks are at this point, for the most part, whether they're a playoff pick or not. You can, however that breaks from there. If it's a playoff or a projected winning first, I'm probably not doing it by itself. If you can give me another second value player, something like that, or dart throw third player, maybe I would. But I still think I might want to hold for the offseason when you have a whole bunch of trade partners and you have teams next year looking to push in. That's kind of where I'm at. Like, not really worth it to just liquidate just for the first, because I think you'll still get that this offseason for sure.
Yeah, I think so too. I think his value will recover more than that by the time we hit start of season next year, right? And then if you are somehow one of those bottom three teams, somehow have Cooper Kupp on your roster, what have you been doing all this time?
Should have sold already, but here we are.
Probably. But I mean, if you think you've got the assets, your team might just be underperforming. You think you could still try to make a run 2023? Do you just hold them through the offseason?
I have no problem with it. Like, I have Cooper Kupp in a lot of places. I didn't realize how many shares of Cooper Kupp I had until this happened. You just rely on him. He's a lock and load set in your lineup, and you're just like, oh yeah, now I have Cooper Kupp gone. Like, what am I doing here? So I have no problem holding. I'm not pushing to move him necessarily. Like, it truly is if I need him. There's a couple spots I have a lot of really good wide receiver depth. Yes, it hurts, but at the same time, I'm not desperate to move him. So I'm happy to hold, man. I'm happy to hold and try and run it back in 23. Like, if that's the option I have, or I have the option to liquidate this offseason, not really panicking. If I am in need of points, I like the DeAndre Hopkins one for sure.
Yep. I think that's it. Just go explore, see what you
Yep.
can do, know your team, know where you're at, and make the move that you need to make.
Like, comment, DM us on Twitter or add us on Twitter. We're happy to, if you have trade questions that you're running through, let us know. Would love to give you our opinion and our thoughts on how to kind of manipulate that and work those types of deals. So let's move on. Any last things you want to touch on Cooper Kupp with?
Nope. I think Cooper Cup's fine. Let's get into a player that's not even a question. I mean, we can kick off this rookie mock, and I mean, can I just fill in the guy for you? I think you got the 101 pick here. I think it's
Yeah.
just a plug and chug, right?
Plug in Bijan Robinson for us here. So this 23 mock, we're just going to run through back and forth on some picks here. But the way that I have it, there's a clear number one. There's no one else in this class that I want besides Bijan Robinson. The quarterbacks are there, great, but you know what? Bijan Robinson is one of those players that should be in the top three, and I'm being generous when I say top three of dynasty running backs the moment he gets drafted. I will take that asset is beyond valuable. No matter how we talk about wide receivers and what they're doing, he's just special. Everything he does, from his speed, his size, his agility. I mean, you've seen the way he moves in tight spaces. It's just incredible what Bijan Robinson can do. And, the system and things like that, we'll see where he lands. But based on talent alone and what his dynasty value will be, Bijan Robinson 101.
Yep, by far. I don't even think it. I mean, locked and loaded, round one in the NFL draft prospect. I truthfully don't even think where his landing spot matters. I still think he's the 101 in all rookie mocks next year, barring, things we're not even going to speak here. I mean, it's just truly one of the greatest running back talents we've seen probably since Saquon Barkley. I always like whenever we were watching film of him, it looks like he runs through holes and runs through the line like he's in a ski slalom. Like, that's just the way he has, just so much agility side to side and burst as soon as he does to get back to full speed within a step and a half. Truly an incredible player, and not much more to say about Bijan. Just take him at the 101 and move on.
Yeah, he's 6 foot, 215, 220 ish. And the way he moves like Steph Curry on the basketball court. It's kind of crazy how quick he stops and starts and moves laterally, like you said. So, yeah, Bijan Robinson 101, great guy to have to your dynasty team. Who you got at 102 here?
102, I think it's between two guys right now. We are treating this like it's going to be a super flex, like we're going to do for basically all of the content we do on this show. And with that, there's only two guys that I think you can really even take into consideration at the 102, CJ Stroud and Bryce Young. For me, I can go back and forth either way, but I've had my guy since day one. It's always been Bryce Young for me. So Bryce Young, quarterback out of Alabama. Size is one of the concerns with Bryce Young. Obviously, we're going to be talking about it all the way through the draft process. He's listed at 6 foot 194. Yeah, you lying. We've seen the commercials that he's done with Kyler Murray. He looks the exact same size. I bet he comes in more around like 5'9" in the actual combine. So that is his one concern. But man, he's got the talent at the quarterback position. Just throwing the ball all over the field. This Alabama offense has thrived, as it does every single year, it seems like. No quarterback transition ever needed. Doesn't need any time to build the next guy up. On pace for 24 touchdowns this year after he missed the game against A&M. He's got a little bit of a rushing floor as well. He's got 3 touchdowns in both the last 2 years. A wild stat that I was pulling whenever we were doing this, his rushing yards from 2021 on 81 attempts. So obviously college stats are going to be taking sacks into account. His total 2021 rushing yards on 81 attempts, exactly 0. I don't know what that means. It's just fucking interesting, right?
Like, when we talk about quarterbacks being a literal 0 in the running game, last year he was a literal 0 in the running game. But he has definitely shown some rushing upside this year, where he's used his legs intelligently. Like, he's not a rushing quarterback, but he's been getting those smart rushing yards. I kind of look at it like similar to Patrick Mahomes-esque, where he's obviously looking to pass the ball, but he does have some of that rushing floor or ability to get out of the pocket, move within the pocket, and find the open lane if it comes down to it.
Yeah, that's it. Just magician in the pocket, can move around, dodges people in the pocket as well. Absolute strikes with the ball all over the field, can make pretty much every throw. Size is the only concern, and the only reason I have him above the guy that I'm assuming you're going to take next year at the 103.
Yeah, definitely. I'm 100% with you. It's CJ Stroud here at 103. And I don't think this top three will fluctuate much. You mentioned it earlier with Bijan that, he should be 101 no matter what your dynasty team situation is. But you're going to see people taking one of these quarterbacks over him because they're a quarterback needy team. CJ Stroud is incredible. I think he's like first in passing touchdowns up there with Drake May. Incredible 24 prospect, by the way. We'll get into that in the offseason and next year. But he's second in, I think, yards per attempt. He's playing incredibly well. He's on an Ohio State team with Marvin Harrison Jr., Egbuka. We haven't seen him with JSN at all, I don't think, besides that first game a little bit. So it's been, those two 24 wide receivers that he's been playing with, and it's just been incredible. There are some question marks about him, I guess it would be. I don't think it's necessarily his ability, but kind of Bryce Young is a not first in, first out, but he's very intelligent with his IQ on the field. And CJ Stroud, there's kind of those question marks of what his dedication is to practice and football, I believe. Don't want to get into that kind of stuff too much. It's small stuff. It's college. He knows who he is. He's obviously an incredibly talented player. He's leading the NCAA and QBR this year. Great talent. What do you got to say about CJ Stroud? Any concerns for you on him?
CJ Stroud, I truthfully don't have any concerns about the first in, first or last out type of stuff. It's college. It is what it is. These guys are kings of the campus. That it's just none of these guys we know will ever make the jump. We can't know about most of that stuff until they actually hit the league, hit the draft process, and we'll find out some more things during that time if there are any concerns. I think my one concern with CJ Stroud is, it does seem to be a little bit more of the system. He's got the guys around him. Bryce Young, I think, is an elevator of the pieces around him. CJ Stroud's just been so insulated with talent there. So there's some of those things, some of the throws you find some question marks at some points with his decision making, first read type stuff. So there are concerns, but I don't think there's any question about these guys being the 102 and the 103.
Yep. No doubt there. I would say the system is the big thing with Ohio State quarterbacks, but there's nothing you can do in the talents there. You got to draft him. He's going to be a first round draft pick. He's going to be a top 10 draft pick most likely. So yeah. So who you got at 104 here?
Yeah, 104, I think, is where we do start to see a little bit of the question marks of who's going to be the next guy. And actually, before we do, I just want to give a fantastic shout out to Dynasty Barry from the Destination Devy community for letting us use this mock draft tool that he's created, running mock drafts over on the Destination Devy platform with the patrons over there. Every single week, we've got Devy mocks coming out. We've got 23 mocks coming out. We've got cornerstone mocks even sometimes going through there. So big shout out to him and whatever he's doing over there. Make sure if you want to get into these type of mocks, like I said, they're going on every single week. Always looking for people to jump in. So be sure to jump over to the Destination Devy for Patreon/all gas channel and get over there. Give us the DMs or give Dynasty Barry the DMs there. Fantastic tools he's created. And we've got all the ADP from everything stored in there. Man, great. Absolutely great platform, great community, and
incredible community.
Just want to give that shout out before we really get into some of the question marks here for the next couple of picks. But at the 104, it is going to be Jahmyr Gibbs, running back out of Alabama as well. 2 Alabama guys in the top 4 here, and this is truthfully just, one, it's an Alabama running back, right? Alabama running backs are going to get drafted. They're going to get drafted high because they just produce immense amount of talent out of that university. There's some crazy stat of like going back the last 8 years, and anybody who's ever touched the ball as a running back for Alabama has been drafted and taken in the NFL draft or something like that. Just some crazy stuff that we've seen out of that school and their running backs. But coming in at 5'11", 200, don't have any size concerns with him. Coming from Georgia Tech and transferring to Bama, just absolutely dominating, leading the SEC and yards per attempt, second overall behind Anthony Richardson overall in the overall, because Anthony Richardson is just running monster right now. But and where we really see his game elevate is in his passing game work. 40 catches on the year for 370 yards and 3 touchdowns. That's what we want to see from guys going into the next level. That's what we want to see for our PPR leagues. Man, if he can continue that type of passing production, I know we don't want to make like Alvin Kamara comparisons because he's not that, but he is still a damn good pass catcher, and that's why I think he should be elevated into this 104 position.
Yeah, I feel like he's more Austin Eckler-ish, especially when it comes to his size. Again, he's just really gifted in the passing game. He can run between the tackles, so we'll see where he goes, what kind of system he's in, and how they decide to use him. I hope they don't just pound him through the tackles, because that's not where. I mean, he can do it, but you want to see him in open space. You want to see him catching the ball. So yeah, with Jahmyr Gibbs. Now this is really where I think that's kind of a status quo top 4 for me. I don't think we might see some people sneak up here to challenge him, but I feel like the 105 is really where we start having mystery. You get the 2 top running backs, 2 top quarterbacks. I'm going to take Kayshon Booty, as the announcers love to say, but Boutte is what I'm going to call him, what I believe his actual last name is. And so Kayshon here at the 105. And, there's been a lot of questions about him, about what's going on, his ability to connect and with that Brian Kelly offense. There's been a lot of mystery with him. The ankle injury is what it ended up being, but we had just questions about the foot, thinking maybe it's Achilles. So much going on around him. But the way I look at this is I took the guy that I believe has the most upside. And Kayshon Boutte has that pure alpha ability, size, speed. Like, everything about him just screams, if it clicks for him at the NFL level, he's going to be very, very good. He's someone that can be a wide receiver 1 for you in Dynasty and in fantasy football year in and year out. So that's what I looked at with this pick. There are other guys with better production that we'll dive into here, I'm sure, very soon. But I love the measurables of Booty and and what he can do on the field. Again, we may not be seeing it this year, but I believe in him. I believe the NFL will draft him highly as well. And I think that's what it comes down to for me.
I do think that's what it comes down to. He's a little bit lower in my wide receivers. He's a little bit lower overall for me. It is just the concerns. He hasn't ever strung it together, really. The talent is undeniable, but at the end of the day, I'm a stats grinder, and I know what his production profile is going to be whenever we get to this offseason, and it isn't going to come out pretty for Boutte. You're truly going to be watching it's going to be a tape analysis. It's going to be just believing in the talent, right? And so the questions concerning him have him a little bit lower for me, but I can't deny the talent. And I'm with you that out of this top group of wide receivers here in this class, he is probably the one that projects to be a wide receiver 1 at the next level. Going into the 106 pick, though, unless you have anything real quick you want to touch on with Booty before we move on.
No, just wanted to say, yep, I agree completely. It's purely the talent is what I'm looking at here. Way too early to see how things actually pan out in the process, but right now that's exactly why it's that wide receiver 1 upside.
Yep.
So what you got at 106?
We're going to go to who would be my wide receiver 1 at the 106, Jordan Addison out of USC. This is one of Ray GQ's absolute favorite guys. He is a USC guy, so he gets to watch him every single week. It's been a little bit up and down for Addison this year. He's missed a couple of games, gone out of a couple of games. So the stats aren't going to be eye-popping, but the talent, again, with Addison is just undeniable. Fred Blinikoff award winner in 2021 whenever he was playing on Pitt, just absolutely wrecked that entire conference over there. Probably vaulted Kenny Pickett up to a little bit of being overdrafted, in my opinion. For the talent that he was, but Kenny Pickett doesn't look bad either. But just an absolute hell of a season back in 2021. 100 receptions, 1593 yards to the air, and 17 touchdowns, man. Just a hell of a fucking season from Jordan Addison back in 2021.
Yeah, he's definitely the 2 for me right now, and it's not even close. I think I have those 2, and I flip-flopped on these 2 quite a bit, but I don't know what Addison projects at the next level, and that's kind of what was the difference for me. But he's been banged up this year. Unfortunately, we haven't really got to see him and Caleb Williams truly. I mean, we've seen a few games. He's had 300-yard games, and I think he's been banged up for the other 5, really, is how it's kind of panned out.
Right.
But, hey, man, he could be special. He could be a quarterback elevating wide receiver, where it doesn't matter who he's playing with. So, yep, don't disagree with anything you said about him there at the 6, and then I'm going to jump right in here to 107. We're going to just keep this wide receiver string going, and I'm going to go with what I think is going to be controversial, but Quentin Johnston. It's way too early, and this is why when I looked at this, doing it now, it's his 6'3", 6'4", 220, 4.4 speed, like just a yak monster. Like, it's TCU. I know, and I know we've been burned by so many TCU wide receivers, and most notably recently Jalen Reagor. But like when you see what he can do, it just is eye popping. The problem is he disappears in games, and you don't want a wide receiver that just disappears. Could be the offense, could be this, that kind of scheme, but it's scary. So he's definitely a huge risk here, taking him over a highly touted and what I think a lot of people's wide receiver one is the fact that he's already down here. I'm just going to say JSN. The fact that he's not even on the board yet is probably shocking to some people. But again, this is, for me, it was based on talent and kind of that upside ability for what I see with Johnston and why I want him here at 107.
Yeah, I actually do have JSN, who I'm going to take here at the next pick whenever we get there. But touching on Quentin Johnston real quick, man, he does have the size, coming in at 6'4", 215 right now is what we have him listed at. We'll see what he comes in at the combine, but it ain't going to be much lighter than that or much shorter than that. He is an absolute tank on the field, man. He's got that alpha build. He has started a little bit slow to the season, but he's come on as of late. They didn't get his last 5 games. He scored a touchdown in each of them.
200-yard game in there too.
Yeah, just some absolute monster blow-up games in there too. And even with the slow start and the wide receiver position, he's top 12 in yards per team passing attempt. He's also commanding a 22.5 receiving share from this offense. I know it's not a very pass-happy offense in TCU there with Duggan, I believe. And so he's not going to put up the full eye-popping week-over-week stats, right? But he's damn good. And I can't fault you at all with what we know at this point of the process for taking him over JSN. Truthfully, the reason I will have JSN over Quentin Johnston at this point, it's the name cachet, man. Like there's some people who are absolutely flipping out right now because they would have taken him at the 102 above the quarterbacks. I mean, before this season started, man, we were having conversations of he's a top 5 wide receiver as soon as he touches the league. I mean, to have him down here, it feels like a disservice. But we've seen some things come out about JSN. Obviously, he hasn't been on the field very much this year. What do you have on JSN?
Yeah, he is most people's wide receiver 1, and so this is probably very shocking, kind of hot takey, however you want to look at it. And again, it's early in the process, but the injury, the fact that Marvin Harrison and Egbuka are playing so well, he's not risking anything. He's not going to come back unless he's 100% healthy. And that's the Keenan Allen thought process. That's what JSN is doing right now. Super talented. There's questions about his speed and his size-ish, I guess, and what his overall speed is going to be. Will he play inside and outside? It sounds like from kind of some of the things that we've heard from Ray and Matt Bruning, that there's a little hesitation on him right now being like an elite wide receiver at the next level. And that's where my hesitation is right now at least in this part of the process, where I'm just like, you know what, I'm happy to just let that sit back. Someone else can take him at the 108. I'll put him, we can put him behind some of these other guys that are close enough to him or project that they could be better than him at the next level, and just kind of take that shot on them if there's also the same kind of similar risk with Jason. So that's kind of my thought process with it. But dude, he's dominant, man. He can do a lot of really good things. He was the best player on a team with Chris Olave and with Garrett Wilson, right? Like, he clearly stood out as the best player, the best wide receiver on that team. So like when you hear something like that, it's like, oh, well, both of those dudes got drafted in the first round last year. He's going to be a first-round draft pick. He's going to get drafted highly in rookie drafts. So we'll see what kind of what the process brings him as he goes through the combine, and kind of see what he decides to do and where that draft capital lands for him to kind of make my decision.
Yeah, I mean, it does almost feel like a little bit of recency bias with him, right? Because we've
Yeah.
got those two guys. We've got Garrett Wilson and Chris Olave, who are top 20 receivers in the league already right now, and he was better than them, right?
Yep.
It feels like a disservice, but we've seen the concerns come out. We've seen the injury. We haven't seen him on the field this year. 5 receptions for 43 yards on the field. Maybe a little bit of recency bias, but we have heard those concerns of he's not really all that athletic. He's getting chased down from behind. If you put on the film and watch him, he's just getting ran down from mediocre defenders in college, and only going to get worse for him in the league if that is actually a concern. A lot of it is, maybe it was a little bit scheme with that Ohio State offense. So those are the concerns, but cannot deny what that man put on the field last year, outpacing both of those two who are doing very well in the league so far this year. Feels like a disservice, but the concerns are going to knock him down for us too.
I think it's just early right now, so we'll have him there. That this again is going to be a growing, changing process throughout. We haven't even truly begun diving into the ins and outs of all of these players. So, for the record, way too early mock, but this is where things are at. And I mean, again, if you're sitting here at the 108 and you have a playoff first, and you think you can get a guy like JSN, even if you look at it as Butte, Addison, or Johnston, like you got to feel pretty good about your draft pick in those spots. Like they're good players, sure there's risks, but there's definitely upside where you got to feel really good about having one of those picks. So,
very good. But this is where it turns a little bit ugly, right?
Yeah, and like this one is where I struggle. There's running backs. There's a lot of good running backs available. There's a couple quarterbacks that come to mind with this draft class in particular. But I'm going to take Blake Corum here at 109, and it's truly kind of a shout out to what he has done this year in college. I mean, I believe he has 1,400 yards, 1,339. Yeah, there it is, 1,339 and 17 touchdowns in 10 games so far.
Monster.
Oh my gosh. Everything he has quick feet, he has the balance and body control. Like some of the fun things to watch are like his jump cuts and like that start stop ability. And he's fast. Like he's a 4.4 guy. He's gonna be in the 4.4, 4.5 range, and that's gonna be really good for a running back and what you want to see. The concern is how big he is, and he's listed in college at 5'8", 210. But we've heard that he's not 5'8". Like he's more in that 5'6" range. Hit rates for 5'6", running backs aren't good. We've heard that he may not be 210 because of that same kind of thing. So if he comes in lightweight, if he comes in small, that does bring concern. Man, like he's looked so good this year, giving him that ability. And he has Donovan Edwards in that backfield with him, and he's just outshining him. I love what Blake Corum has done this year. I look forward to seeing him. He's got to be in the Heisman consideration. He's got to be there in New York. So what do you got to say on Blake?
Yeah, Blake Corum. I mean, it would have been nice to see him take a little bit more of the role last year, but he did have Hassan Haskins in front of him. But even whenever Hassan Haskins was in front of him, efficiency-wise, he was doing very well. 6.6 yards per attempt. And then this year, man, with him leading the backfield, just taking it over, 4th in yards per team play, that is outstanding for a guy, especially a guy who, one of the concerns though with him is he doesn't do much in the passing game. So for us in fantasy, what does that mean in the next level? I don't think it means all that much because I do think he's going to get some pretty good draft capital with the season that he's putting up right now. So he's going to be an absolute grinder at the next level. I don't have the size concerns yet. I'm going to let the process play out and show me that those are the size concerns. So I think that is a reason why we're able to vault him up into this, RB3 overall in the class right now. Exactly. But we'll see how this one plays out for him. But man, cannot deny what he is putting on the field this year.
Nope. Yep, that's exactly it. Can't knock him on his size concerns until we truly know. So what you got at 110 here? Are we gonna?
110 is the spicy pick. 110 is the spicy pick. I was one of the first people on this guy, I feel like, in this season. Hendon Hooker, quarterback out of Tennessee. You want to talk about potential Heisman winners? Yeah, Hendon Hooker has vaulted up the Tennessee Volunteers to levels that they haven't seen since Peyton was playing there for him, right? It has not been great for Tennessee over the last couple of years, and Hendon Hooker has turned this team around. I know what people are going to say about Hendon Hooker. Like, it's the offense, it's the scheme. He doesn't have he doesn't have all of the it factors for the next level. I don't see how he's not a first round quarterback next year. I don't see how he's not with the season that he's putting up, the the way he's taken over this team. He's leading them to a potential playoff berth for the first time in the new CFP slate. So, man, Hendon Hooker has shown me a lot. And like I said, maybe it's a little bit of pre-bias because I was in on him from like week 2, week 3, whenever we were doing one of these mocks back a long time ago with Dynasty Barry. And he was one of my just dart throws at like the 412. I was just like, you know what? He's running a little bit. He's actually won a couple games here. Maybe he can take the step forward. And man, he has just taken over this team. He's made some amazing throws all over the field. He's put the ball where it needs to be, led them to the amazing win over Alabama. Couldn't pull it off against Georgia, but that's a damn good defense. Yeah. And yeah, that's an NFL defense right there, right? So if that's his toughest competition this year, man, he's balled out, and he's actually got some pretty good sneaky athleticism in the running game too, which is what we love for our quarterbacks. Nothing along the lines of what we're seeing out of Justin Fields this year, right? But nobody else has that as of right now except Lamar Jackson. So Hendon Hooker's one of my guys. We'll see how the draft process plays out for him, see if he is that first round quarterback like I'm projecting. But if he is, we're in this kind of gross range where we're saying maybe this guy sneaks up, and I'm willing to lay my stamp on Hendon Hooker yet.
Yeah, you've been in on Hooker. I remember early in the year, and I think you saw one of the games, and you're just like, he looks like he could do it. Let's kind of keep an eye on this one, and then you kind of
and then Bama game sealed it. I was like, he's my guy.
It is, when it comes to any quarterback, it's always the draft. Like, what does the NFL say about these players? We saw it with Malik Willis, where we got super excited, or not we, but I never was. But the fantasy community got super excited about fucking Malik Willis. And Hendon Hooker, he's played very, very well. He should earn his way into that first round. If he does, you got to take him in the first round of a rookie draft, right? Like, you have to. And that's kind of how it is. We'll dive into this kind of in a little bit here, and we can talk about this later, but there's just questions about quarterbacks and kind of taking those gambles on them. But at the 110, good value. Yeah, man, take the shot on Hendon Hooker, starting quarterback at the next level. You get him at the 110, you're feeling great, right? You get another starting quarterback for your team, whether he's a QB2 or QB3, most likely you were competing. You got to feel really good about that opportunity. So I'm going to jump right into 111 because we can kind of wrap up the board here. I'm going to go with Michael Mayer. And I struggled with putting him here, but he's going to be a first-round draft pick. He's the best tight end. He's a freaking unit. Like, he's 6'4", 265. He's a offensive lineman that catches footballs and runs routes. Like, he's going to be drafted highly. He's going to be on the field. And I know it takes time for tight ends to truly show what their ability is and develop. Sometimes situation matters. All those types of things kind of come into play with tight ends and the opportunity they're going to get with target share. But man, he's going to be a first round pick. And you got to take the shot on him. Tight end's such a weak position in the NFL. And if it's a tight end premium like we play in, you're going to want to have a shot on that guy.
Yeah, if you're playing in anything 1.5 or over 2 tight end, and he's a first-round draft pick, I think he's got to be a first-round pick. I wouldn't vault him up into where I think some people will be vaulting him up to once they see the draft capital. I think you could see some like 107, 106 even maybe with him, because people are going to lose their minds whenever they see how well he's produced. I mean, he's dominated. He is the Notre Dame offense in the passing attack.
Really is.
Out of the tight end slot, and he's a good blocker. And he's a unit. Everything looks like it'll transition well for this guy. Obviously, landing spot will matter a lot, as it does for tight ends, and we'll see how long it takes for him to develop. But man, can you imagine if he slips a little bit and he could go to like Cincy or something? Man, people would lose their minds over Mayer.
Yeah, man. He's already got a 36% dominator rating in college right now. I think his receiving share is 34%. As well. He has the numbers to be a productive receiving option as a tight end. And so that's what we look for. That's what we love to see. So he can do it. And it's just going to be a matter of, is that offense going to allow him? We've seen more rookie tight ends this year kind of producing than in years past, with Isaiah Likely, showing off some of his skills, Dulcich stepping up and playing well in his first few games healthy. So we're actually seeing some of these rookie wide tight ends be actually fantasy relevant for us. Lots of tongue twisters with the tight ends there, but
too many T's.
Yeah, too many T's. So let's wrap up this draft here. Then we can kind of look at it wholesale. Who you got at 112 to wrap this thing up?
112. It's going to be a little bit of a homer pick.
I knew it.
A&M running back. A&M running back Devon Achane. You're at the back. You're at the back of this round. There's some guys. They came into the season with a lot better outlook. A lot of them haven't produced. And whenever you're in this range, it gets kind of gross. A lot of this range is going to start being draft capital. There's a lot of running backs in this range you could take, I think. Not too many wide receivers. I think we're kind of getting into like the downs range. So the second round is going to be great for this draft. Let's just put that out there right now. So any of these guys that are sliding into these 111, 112 slots, they're going to be good for your team yet, I think. Devon Achane, though, man, he is a speedster on the field. He's a freaking track athlete, man. Like, I don't know if some people may not know this, but he actually runs track at A&M, runs 100-yard dashes, and post times close to Olympic qualifying numbers. He has posted a 10.12 100-meter dash.
Fast, man.
And Olympic qualifying numbers is a 10.05. 0.07 seconds from being an Olympic speed runner. Absolutely incredible speed that this guy has. And the concerns with him are going to be his size, right? Because there's been reports out there that saying whenever he's running track, he's weighing in at like 165, 170. And if you're an NFL running back, man, that just ain't going to work. That ain't going to cut it. Currently, he is listed at 5'9", 185. I know some people think he's probably leaning more like upper 170s, 180 max. We'll see what he weighs in at the combine, and we'll see what the numbers come out through the pro day and everything like that. But cannot deny the speed that he has. And man, he's a workhorse for this team too. Like, if you truly have size concerns, he's the workhorse of the A&M offense right now. He's taken for 158, 887, and 6 for this team. The next running back on the roster only has 16 attempts in the rushing game.
Crazy, man. It's crazy.
So he's a workhorse. Like, I know the NFL game is going to be a little bit different in terms of size and, the hits that you're absorbing and everything like that. But he's shown that he can carry the rock, and he's got a pretty good receiving game too. So I think all the skills are there. I truly think the only reason that Devon Achane wouldn't be a first round draft pick is because of the size.
Yeah. So I don't think he will end up being a first-round rookie pick, is what you're going
Rookie
with.
pick, yes.
Yeah. I know you don't think he's a first-round. Only Bijan has that.
Only
potential.
Bijan. I saw Jahmyr Gibbs mock there once, and I was like, no, that's not happening.
But I think for him, it's going to be very situation specific for me. Yeah, I know he's being used as a workhorse now, but that is going to wear on a frame like that. I do want to see the size. I want to actually find out what it is, but he's definitely not 200 pounds. We all know that for sure. So that's what kind of gives me some concern. Where does he go? How does an offense use him? Is he going to get a lot of targets? Is he going to get a lot of carries at the next level? He's a very picky one for me, but he's electric, man. Like, you get the ball in his hands, he can score on any play. His speed is undeniable. Like, I wish he was bigger. But there's other big names that were left off here. And I think that's kind of the point we wanted to get to. Like, all of these guys in this like 209 and beyond range, we still got Zachary Evans that we didn't even talk about or get into. And like, big running back from Ole Miss, like, he's going to be drafted well in the NFL, whether he's a second or third round draft pick in the NFL. Sean Tucker, draft capital pending. Dude is fast. He's electric for Syracuse. Love the player. The problem is, he reminds me so much of Chuba Hubbard. Where he has that straight line speed, and you saw what Hubbard did at Oklahoma State, and now what he's doing in the NFL. Like, he has the ability to still be an NFL running back, but we're seeing Hubbard getting passed up. Sean Tucker is a much better pass catcher than Hubbard, though. Will say that.
Sure.
Sean Tucker is a much, much better pass catcher. So you can utilize him in different ways. Tank Bigsby. I still got Josh Downs out there. We didn't even mention Will Levis as a quarterback that potentially could get drafted. Some questions there as well. Anthony Richardson, Cedric Tillman, Deuce Vaughn. Like, this second round is going to be good. Like, you're going to find good players in the second round. It's not like 2022.
No, not like 2022 at all, where we were like, I mean, I guess he's up there because there's nobody else, right? Like, you want these guys in
Yes.
late back end of the first, early second round. And I mean, we've got massive amounts of depth. I know that this class came in being like heralded as one of the best classes ever. And I think we've kind of backed off of that in most communities out there in the fantasy space right now. But what this class is it's freaking deep, man. If you have one of these like 7 to 6 to 10 picks and you want to trade back into the second round, pick up any extra capital, I'm perfectly fine with doing that. Because like we said, these guys are all almost the same. I mean, we could have had 110 through 112, even 109 through 112. We could have had a list of probably 10 to 12 guys that another fantasy analyst would have put in there at any of the picks. So this class is very, very deep. So second round, I'm trying to pick up those second rounders wherever I can right now. Even if I need to trade off of a 2023 first, go to a 2024 first and pick up a 2023 second. Love that move right now. If we were still able to do the trade deadline, I think you could still get that done a lot throughout this process. The value might be a little bit dampened right now in the 23 class, but we're in the low point right now. The classes always have cycles. And so we are going to get back in on this class. Once everybody wraps up the NFL season, we start going, okay, let's start doing our analytics. The analytics guys start coming out and saying, oh, look at this guy. He's had this target share. He's had this dominator rating. People start putting out their film grades and they're like, oh, there's no way this guy can fail at the next level. We're going to get back up on this class. And we're going to find a lot of guys throughout this process. They're going to be moving all around the board. Again, way too early for us, but wanted to get this out there and touch on these guys as we are wrapping up the fantasy season for 2022.
Yeah, we're wrapping up the college football season, wrapping up the fantasy regular season, going to get into some things. So we'll be doing a lot of mocks in the off season to really make sure we're all prepared for the first, second, and third round. We at least wanted to get this first round out there. And as Cody mentioned, man, like there's going to be a good amount of depth in this class. I don't know if it's like deep into the third necessarily. We'll find out throughout as the process goes on, but you're definitely going to find some names in that, early to mid second that you're like, man, give me any one of these guys. So yeah, trading away those picks now isn't the best idea. Like you said, waiting for that cycle where the hype season comes back, where we're talking about these guys in the Senior Bowl, talking about the combine, like leading up to your actual draft will be the best time to sell these. And you'll be able to get moves done where you're getting a 23 second and a 24 first. I mean, shoot, depending on where you're at, like you might be able to get a 23, like a late 23 first and 24 first. Like people will start doing crazy things for some players. So patience is key if you have some of these picks still on your roster and you're going to hold on to them into the offseason. Just be patient with them. They're going to have a lot of value. Any last things you want to dive into here on what we've kind of laid out so far?
Yeah, let's get into a little bit before we get out of here. Like, where's your pick cutoffs? Where's those picks that you're starting to think about trying to move off of? Where are those kind of dead zones where you're like, man, I don't really know who I would even take right here. And obviously it'll even itself out a little bit more as we go through the process, but I definitely have some, and it starts off with the 101.
Yeah.
I mean, the 101 is by far like there's nothing else close to it, right? Bijan is everything and it's the only thing, right?
After that, like, yeah, I'm with you. Like, it's Bijan by himself, and there's no one throughout this process that will come into that tier. Like, it's not close. It is Bijan by himself. And, Stroud and Young, I think, will be the next tier. Like, I'll cut it off at that. Like, I like Gibbs a lot. I just traded away Gibbs in a Devy league for Amon-Ra straight up. So if you can do that, do it. Anyways, I wanted to get the sure thing, but like Bryce Young and CJ Stroud, despite how well they're going to get drafted and they're going to be top 10 picks, probably top 5 picks if I had to imagine, there's still question marks about what they are in fantasy. Like, are they going to be top 8 quarterbacks? Are they going to jump up there with Kyler and Dak and Burrow? Like, are they that good? Or are they going to fall in that like Tua Rangers, Tua above him, Fields above him? Like, are they top 12 quarterbacks right off the bat? Can they even be that? And like, that is my concern with them. While they're super talented, you're going to be starting them. Really, anything after the 101, I'm willing to trade. I want these players. Do not get me wrong. I want these players, but I'm willing to trade back and like get off of Bryce Young if someone really wants a quarterback. Yeah, sure. Give me the 107 and a 24 first. Like, if you want a quarterback that bad, like, you're gonna find that range. That's why I think those 2 quarterbacks are in that next tier.
Yep, I do have my next cutoff at the 103, and then past the 103, I don't care again until the 108.
Yeah.
Because all of those guys in there, I could interchange any of those Gibbs and the 4 wide receivers, right? I can interchange any of those at this point right now. But past the 108, I mean,
Yeah.
Who cares, right? Like, any of these guys, we could see any of these guys could fall out of the first round. Even some of these wide receivers could fall out of the first round, right? And so once we get past the 108, I don't care about the picks anymore.
Nope. Yep. 109, Blake Corum could actually be Zachary Evans. You could see Tank Bigsby in here. Like, legit, you can switch these names around. So, like, if you're in that range, as Cody mentioned, man, trading back is something you got to look at, because you're going to get a same caliber player 6 picks later, and you can pick up additional assets for your team.
Yep. And as we said, probably not a move you want to make now, but just store it in the back of your brain. We'll be working through this process more through the off season, but wanted to get ahead of it, wanted to get these names on the board, wanted to, put some stamps on some guys real early, way too early. So don't hold us to them if we start changing. But before we get out of here, do want to give another really big shout out once again, Dynasty Barry, for giving us this tool, the mock draft. Go to Patreon.com/allgas. Get that one out there, Cody. Come on, let's go. Fantastic community, fantastic group of people over there. Get into these mocks. If you want to get into these mocks with us, we're in those mocks all the time over there on that community. We're always looking for guys to run these. We're trying to run them as much as we can to get as much data, as much new minds as we can. So we're going to be doing these mocks like these all throughout the off season. And I'm excited for this 23 class, man.
Yep, and that's pretty much where we're at right now. We'll definitely dive into the second round and beyond at some point next week. I think we might end up doing a Dynasty startup mock. We'll see what we're going to end up doing next week. But if you're interested in joining any of these mocks with us, please find us on Discord, Trophy Chase, C Smith TFDR on Discord, or at us on Twitter at Trophy Chase TFDR, at Cody Smith TFDR. And I think that wraps us up. Head out.
Take us out of here, man.
All right, man. Thank you so much again for joining us here in the Fantasy Draft Room.